New intro, new logo, same championship rings. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Brandon Lewis from Brandon's World, Josh Ungar from Ungar to the Max. Josh, it feels like we got through our pilot phase of championship rings, and here we go. What a show we got tonight.
I know we got a huge matchup on Sunday Night Football, or at least it was supposed to be a huge matchup. Huge, or I don't want to say the word huge again, gigantic showdown in the Pacific Northwest on Saturday afternoon. Yeah, and it's NHL opening night. How about that?
How about that? Well, I'll tell you what, before we get started with today's show, make sure to follow us on social media. We are on Twitter at Rings Champion. Instagram, we can move on to at Rings Champion. Facebook at Rings Champion 216. You can subscribe to us here on YouTube at Championship Rings 216. The video version of this podcast goes live on all podcasting platforms as well on Wednesdays with clips on the Championship Rings YouTube channel. Josh, we got to start with a big game, Sunday Night Football. You kind of called it. You kind of called it last week. I'm not going to lie. You didn't call it in this bad of a trouncing. Now, regardless of how the score turned out, in my opinion, the game was never close. Kind of once Fred Warner popped that ball out of Tony Pollard, I think it was late first quarter, early second quarter. The wheels kind of fell off from there for Dallas. Niners win 42-10. The question really is this the best game that Niners will play all year? Is Dallas really that bad? Or is San Francisco really just that good?
I mean, look at who the Cowboys have played up until this game. The Giants, we know what they are. They're bad. The Jets, okay, they're playing a little bit better, but still not great. Arizona just took it to the Cowboys, and, well, Dallas lost. And then New England, and we've seen what the Patriots are. So everybody's hyping up the Dallas Cowboys as, oh, they're this great team and all this and that. And I'm like, have they really played anyone, though? Like, sorry, but, I mean, like, I don't get all the hype surrounding the Dallas Cowboys. San Francisco showed you are not on our level. The 49ers, if the 49ers are here, the Dallas Cowboys are like there. It's that wide of a gap.
So, all off season, and you have pushed back on me. And sometimes on this show, I had to play two different roles, obviously. Sometimes I got to play the opinionist, but I also have to moderate this show and get us in and out of topics. But you have done a very good job of telling me the Cowboys are frauds. They're not for real. Because I have come in here and said week after week, I thought Dallas, next to San Francisco, and Philadelphia was the third best team in the NFC. That's not the case. I'll get to who I think is the third best team in the NFC in our next block. The most concerning thing, I want to focus a little more on Dallas for a second, because to me, it's been a recurring theme now that head coach Mike McCarthy, who, as I call him, Mike McSleepy, has done for the last 4 years for the Dallas Cowboys. They are not ready to play. Their game plan was bad. Their big-time players did not show up. And once again, in a big-time spot, Dak Prescott, who got paid that gigantic contract that Dallas cannot get out of until 2 years. Obviously, next year, if they try to get out of it, it would be a huge cap hit. Like, Dak is the definition ever since he had that brutal, gruesome leg injury during the COVID season. Dak has been the definition of C+, B- quarterback instead of what he was earlier in his career, which was a B+ to an A-, arguably top 10 quarterback when he had Ezekiel Elliott, when he had, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb on the outside, when he had that young offensive line. Now Dallas's offensive line is older. CeeDee Lamb is their only legitimate wide receiver. Their defense, outside of Michael Parsons, ever since they've lost Trayvon Diggs, has not been the same defense. It's amazing what losing one good corner did to that defense. So Dallas, listen, I still think a lot of people are saying they're not even going to make the playoffs. I don't believe that at all. I still think they're a 10-11 win team. I don't think they're bad. I think it is classic Cowboys where outside of Philadelphia, because it's a divisional rivalry, they always get amped up for Philly. It doesn't matter what the record is. And Dak has always played well, especially in Dallas against Philly. They just can't beat the good teams. They'll beat up on the bad teams. I'm very interested because this game coming up, I know we'll get to it later in the show, but week 6, Cowboys Chargers, Monday Night Football, Kellen Moore revenge game, the new offensive coordinator of the Chargers. Off a bye. Dallas got humiliated on prime time. Usually, if you're a good football team, when you get humiliated on prime time television, you bounce back the next week and play well. I think this will be very telling for the rest of Dallas this season, what they do in this game next Monday.
Yeah, and this is an interesting placement because if you look, Dallas has to play the Chargers, then they have their bye week, and then they've got the Rams, who are clearly showing they're going to be a factor this season. Then they have the Eagles, and then you look a little later in the season, there's a stretch where I think it's Seattle, then they've got Miami, and then they've got Buffalo. I'd have to look where that stretch is. But there's some key games coming up for Dallas this season. They could possibly miss the playoffs. They could. I'm not definitively saying they will, but look, think about it. Out of the NFC West, you could possibly have 3 teams make the playoffs. San Francisco, obviously, Seattle, and the Los Angeles Rams. Then, out of the NFC North, you've got Detroit, obviously. The NFC South, I guess Tampa Bay, but we'll see.
It'll be Tampa or New Orleans. I don't think 2 teams will make it out of that division. I could be wrong. I'm not, and listen, I saw the Rams up close and personal, obviously, Sunday. They have a good offense. Cooper Kupp coming back makes a difference to them offensively. I'm sorry, their defense is not very good. And I think that's the difference. And we talked about this in the preseason, Josh. It's Aaron Donald and a bunch of kids. And they played San Francisco well because, again, it's a divisional game. And they beat the Colts, but they were up 23-0 in that game and let the game get to overtime. I think the Rams, to me, a lot of people want to put them in the playoffs. I still see them as a 6-7 win team this year that has to win every game by shootout, and their offensive line is already falling apart. And so that's where I think Dallas does have the advantage, is they have a better defense. They do have a capable quarterback. And listen, on any given week, we know Dallas can blow people out. It may be a bad team, but they are capable of blowing people out. I think people forget, as I said last year, they won 12 games last year. It wasn't like they were a bad team last year. No, they did lose some pieces.
Okay, but what did they do once they got to the...
I understand it. Well, they did actually win a playoff game, believe it or not.
Okay, but still, what did they do? Nothing. They haven't been to the NFC. They haven't been to the NFC Championship game since 1995.
No, they haven't. I'll tell you what, they played Brock Purdy pretty well. And by the way, that game Sunday night, that was the best game Brock Purdy ever played. And I still don't even know how good of a quarterback Brock Purdy really is. We need to see Brock Purdy trailing in games from behind, winning game-winning drives and close games to figure out how good this kid really is. Because right now, all I'm seeing is he's throwing to wide-open guys.
Okay, but you're talking about playing from behind and playing in close games. Dallas hasn't had to do that this season.
No, they have not. You're right. That's why I think Monday night will be their big test. It's going to be their former offensive coordinator against the Chargers, and we all know what the Chargers do when it comes to coaching. So
Brandon Staley. But my point, though, is this. Has it been their offense that's given them the big leads and stuff? No.
No.
Look at what their defense did against the New York Giants on Sunday Night Football. They had a blocked field goal. They had multiple sacks. What they have? 11 sacks again? No, that was the Seahawks against the
Seattle had it against the Giants.
Okay, but still, like the Giants have shown they're bad. I don't
The
know
Giants
why.
are not very good.
I don't know why that game is on Sunday Night Football between the Giants and the
Well,
Buffalo
because
Bills.
the NFL for some reason thought the Giants were actually a real playoff team because they won a playoff game last year, a lot like Dallas.
But anyway, but you get my point. It's like, the Jets, they don't have Aaron Rodgers, so of course Micah Parsons was allowed to just eat Zach Wilson alive.
No, I agree. And listen, I am the NFC East guy. I'm supposed to hate Dallas, which I do. But I find it funny that people are acting like Dallas is a trash team that wins like 7-8 games a year.
They're a front runner.
That's what they are. They're a front running team.
How many times have we seen that formula actually work in the NFL? How many times?
Not a lot, but I gotta tell you what you do gotta have in the NFL. You gotta have a quarterback. You gotta have a pass rush. You gotta have weapons. You gotta have a good offensive line. You gotta have a good defensive line. You probably gotta have at least one good corner. Dallas has a lot of those elements, so they don't have all of them. The two teams that do in the NFC, Philadelphia, San Francisco. We all know what's coming. Week 13, NFC Championship game rematch. San Francisco comes to Philadelphia. That is the class of the NFC. And no matter if you want to put Dallas or a couple other teams in there, the top two teams we both agree right now are San Francisco and Philly. And then there's a notch down there between the other teams. I would put Dallas in tier 2. That's all I am arguing. I think some people want to put them in tier 3, kind of below that third and fourth team. I think Dallas is still there. I think that they're a good team. I don't think anymore they're a very good team.
I would argue Detroit is in that tier 2 team. And I don't know if Dallas and Detroit were to play right now, I don't know if Dallas would win that game given how Detroit is playing. But
I think it would be close. The one thing that would worry me if I'm a Lions fan, and yes, they blew Carolina's doors off on Sunday. I get it. But their defense is not great. They give up a lot of yards and a lot of points. And if Jared Goff doesn't have a good game offensively, that's where I think the Lions, they need to add another piece at the trade deadline, whether it's a corner or a defensive lineman, to get a better pass rush or better secondary help, because they're still giving up points. I get it was in garbage time because all they did was score, but they were giving up yards and points to even Carolina when that game was somewhat close. It would have been in the third quarter.
Okay, fair. And I'm glad when you were talking about the top two teams, you said San Francisco and then Philadelphia. I get it. They're both undefeated.
No. Don't start this crap.
San Francisco is the better team.
Better than the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes, they
are not better than the
Yes,
Philadelphia
they are.
Eagles. They are not better than the Philadelphia Eagles. They are not better than the Philadelphia Eagles.
Why?
They're
Just
not
because
better.
they won the NFC Championship
At what position
last year?
are they better? Eagles, quarterback, check. Offensive line, check. Receiving core in general, check. Even though San Francisco may have the best tight end, Philadelphia as a unit has the better core. Defensive line as a unit, Philadelphia is deeper. Secondary, give the edge to Philadelphia. In every single unit, the Eagles are better than the Niners. Outside of maybe running back, though DeAndre Swift and Christian McCaffrey are the two biggest leaders in rushing yards this season.
Okay, I'll give you that. Alshon Jeffrey, Devontae Smith.
Alshon Jeffrey? You mean AJ freaking Brown?
Where did I come up with Alshon Jeffrey?
Where'd you get Alshon Jeffrey from? He's been off the team for 3 years.
I don't know. I didn't mean AJ Brown, so my apologies about
that.
The
best wide receiver duo in the league, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and you add on the very underrated tight end. He may not be as good as George Kittle, Very underrated tight end Dallas Goedert with the best offensive line in football. That is undisputable. The best defensive line in football. That is undisputable. San Francisco may have Nick Bosa, but as a unit, Philadelphia is absolutely better.
Okay, but all Philadelphia has at the skill position when it comes to the wide receivers is A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Have you heard of this guy named Quez Watkins? He's really fast. Catches the ball. He's a very good slot wide receiver.
Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel.
Okay, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are both better than Ayuk and Deebo. They both are. Both of them. I would take Devontae Smith over Ayuk and Deebo. If Devontae Smith wasn't on Philadelphia, he'd be a number one wide receiver on 25 of these NFL teams.
God, I can't wait for this Week 13 game when San Francisco shows you that they're the better team.
Oh, real funny. We got to get to our thoughts on the rest of Week 5 of the National Football League. You know what? I'll let you go first because this was a little bit of a strange weekend, in my opinion. Outside of a few games, not a lot of scoring. The 1 o'clock games were not great. I don't really have a lot of strong opinions this week. It was kind of mostly what we expected.
Well, the Baltimore Ravens dropping 8 passes was not what I expected. I thought the Ravens were supposed to have this new great offense with Todd Monken. You know, they bring in Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman's healthy now. They bring in Odell Beckham Jr. They have Mark Andrews. And I find out via Sal Palantonio on Sunday NFL Countdown that the receivers coach is having them try and catch not footballs, but rugby balls. What?
That's an interesting approach, and clearly it's not working. I have no idea, by the way, how Pittsburgh won that game. Basically, Kenny Pickett told Matt Canada to go find a new job and threw it up to George Pickens and said, let's go win this game. Listen, the Steelers do what the Steelers always do, right? Defense, they get a blocked punt that leads to a safety, hang in there throughout the whole game, look horrible for 3.5 quarters, and yet the Pittsburgh Steelers have a pop gun offense that cannot move the football, are 3-2 and leading the AFC North.
I don't know how. I genuinely don't know how. But it looks like Joe Burrow is back to being
I tried telling everybody. Everybody tried to write Cincinnati off. I told everybody on this show, I said on Brandon's World, take Cincinnati -3. Cincinnati's going to be back. They're going to go on a run here. I get the schedule tough, but when you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, sometimes it doesn't matter.
Jamar Chase gave me 44 points for fantasy football this week.
Okay, so here's a fantasy story. I got to bring this up real quick. How would you like to be me this weekend, okay? Thursday night, I have DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. I start them both. I am up 68-0 going in on Sunday. You know who I end up facing?
Jamar.
Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Zach Moss.
Oh, good God.
Those 3 players combined to give my opponent 90 points, and I end up losing 180-167 in a traditional, PPR ESPN standard scoring week.
Okay. I'm not, even though the Houston Texans lost, I'm not changing my stance. CJ Stroud was definitely the right choice for the Texans at quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. I'm not giving up on what I said about the Texans this last week. They're not legit. They're not like a legit playoff contender, but they're going to give some teams some problems. I'm not changing my stance about that, even though they lost to the Falcons, which Desmond Ridder, can you actually play quarterback? Because
I don't know. He did so in the 4th quarter. How about that crazy catch by Bijan Robinson behind the back, getting in the end zone?
Yes. But other than that,
here's my biggest takeaway. Robert Kraft, at the end of the season, It's time, bud. You got to sit down with Belichick. And one of two things is going to either have to happen. Number one, you're going to have to talk to Bill and say, Bill, if you still want to coach here, you're going to have to at least give up the GM power. Somebody else is going to have to draft or at least help you in scouting offensive personnel. By the way, I don't think Mac Jones is a good quarterback, but I don't think he's bad either. But there is nothing to work with on that New England offense. The Saints completely shut him down. Mac Jones got benched. There's talk in New England about them tanking for Caleb Williams. As great as Caleb Williams was, and as great as he was again against Arizona on Saturday night, even though it took him 3 overtimes, what an incredible game that was. As great as Caleb Williams is, he wouldn't be able to fix this dumpster fire. When your receivers are a TikTok boy and a guy that can't separate, and Devontae Parker last in the league the last 3 years in wide receiver separation, you're not going to be able to win games. So I think, listen, Bill Belichick's a great coach. And I'm not just saying this because I bang on defensive coaches a lot. Bill Belichick is a genius. 5 years ago, he came up with the greatest scheme against Sean McVay and the LA Rams. He held him to 3 points. It was his last Super Bowl. Belichick has shut down even the top offenses in today's game. He gave Tua a little bit of trouble in week 2, even though Miami won. Gave Jalen Hurts a little bit of trouble in week 1, even though Philadelphia won. He made Zach Wilson see ghosts again. We're not denying that Bill Belichick isn't a smart defensive coach, but literally all they've hit on in the draft are maybe some offensive linemen and all defensive players. They have no skill position players. They don't look like they can move the ball down the field. And once these teams, because, week 1, week 2, week 3, you're starting to get a feel for what teams do. There's not a lot on tape. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, now that teams have seen New England's offense, they have not been able to move the ball down the field. They have went from a franchise that post Brady, we all thought, give Belichick one more chance, see if Mac Jones, see if he can turn it around. 2 years ago, they made the playoffs. Since they got blown their doors off in negative 10-degree weather by Buffalo in that playoff game, they've turned into an irrelevant franchise and a corner TV game at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes. They're probably going to finish with a top 5 pick in the draft because
I'll tell you what, it's possible, though. I do think now Belichick's specialty has always been pick on young quarterbacks or quarterbacks that aren't very good. It's why I gave them a chance to beat New Orleans, because their offense hadn't been good all season long. They do know Garoppolo. I think that game with the Raiders is going to be very, very close. They do get a chance to play the Giants this year. They're going to play Indianapolis, and no matter if it's Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew, even though I like Anthony Richardson, it's a rookie quarterback against Belichick. They get to play Washington this year, so they'll be able to beat up on Sam Howell. So there's some wins in there. The problem's going to be, there's a Denver. Can they beat Russell Wilson if he's still the quarterback at that stage? There's a scenario where you get 6-7 wins as bad as they are, and they finish, with the 11th or 12th pick, and yet they still go out and just draft defensive players. Something's got to change, though.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you with the Patriots. I really don't. I mean, it's looking more and more like it was Brady, not Belichick.
Yeah, and when it was originally, when Brady left New England, I always said it was a 50-50 split because there were some Super Bowls Brady won. There was obviously some Super Bowls Belichick won. And ever since Brady left, you're right, it's now probably 70-80% Brady, especially for the last, 3 or 4 Super Bowls they won, as opposed to, obviously, the first 2, I think, were mostly Belichick. Again, the games were weird this week. You talked about Houston and Atlanta, very strange game. Vegas got that right on the line at 2. Baltimore obviously let one slip away. I got to tell you, the Jets made me proud. I picked the Jets in Brandon's best bets this week on Brandon's World. Jets covered the 2.5. They did it for Nathaniel Hackett against the Broncos. This is going to be a real question to me, too, is, Denver, we talked about Dallas. They're not going to be able to probably get out of Dak's contract. Denver, as much as they probably want a new quarterback, they're probably not going to be able to get out of that Russell Wilson contract due to the cap next year. I think it's like 60 million or something crazy like that. So there's this cycle of Denver having a fire sale. Obviously, they have good pieces. Garrett Bowles, the left tackle. Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton at receiver. Patrick Surtain at corner. Do you move off some of those pieces at the deadline to try to tank for a quarterback that even if you draft in the first round, I don't know how they get out of Russ's contract next year if that's the direction Sean Payton and company decide to go.
The Seattle Seahawks are just laughing at the Denver Broncos right now.
God, you know what's funny? When that trade went down, I think we all kind of said good for Denver. We all thought they had their franchise quarterback. But people were laughing at what Seattle got. And I said, no, that's a haul. Like I said, Drew Lock, who I didn't think could be a quarterback. You got Noah Fant in that deal. You got 2 firsts. You got 2 seconds. Noah Fant's a very good tight end. And your favorite quarterback in the league, Geno Smith, who, by the way, was on a bye this week. He gets to play the Bengals next week. He's played well. But Seattle has done a good job replenishing that roster, drafting good talent like the tackles they drafted, the corner they just got,
Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois.
They had the big kid, Wooden Warren, I believe.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf as well as Tyler Lockett. So they have pieces.
Jackson Smith and Jigba,
who hasn't even yet popped. I'm a little bit surprised by that myself. Very fascinating what Denver does, because we talked about this when they got Russell Wilson. It's always the Browns situation with Deshaun Watson, right? Cleveland's in the division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Well, Denver's in the division with Mahomes and Justin Herbert. And if Vegas decides to get a quarterback upgrade, you're going to be fourth in your division. How you cannot compete in this league with as great a quarterback play as we have in today's NFL, if you're third or fourth in your division by, a good stretch at the quarterback position, you just can't do it.
Right. I mean, we'll see what the Jets are once Aaron Rodgers comes back. But New England right now, they're fourth in term.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. It's not even close, which is why, unfortunately, as much as we like Mac Jones and thinks he's a good kid, I think it's going to be time to move on. Speaking of being time to move on, Josh, there are a lot of quarterbacks in college football this year, but there's going to be 2 going head-to-head this Saturday live in Washington. I believe so, correct? Is that game in Washington?
Yes.
Yep, I believe
Top 10 showdown. I can't freaking wait for this game.
Look at the excitement on Josh's face. Number 7, Oregon against number 8, Washington. Obviously, the kid Penix from Washington is absolutely unbelievable. He's going to be a top 10 pick. You got the kid Nix from Oregon. 2 very good teams. Loser, I would say, is out of the college football playoff. Winner has potentially a good shot to get in. So they're going to have to fight USC over it. Take it away, my college football fanatic.
I cannot wait for this game. These 2 teams absolutely despise each other. When Oregon and Washington play, it is an absolute war. It is a grudge match. I have been waiting for this game because I knew how big it was going to be. And looking at how the AP poll is, I think the winner of this game should move past Georgia and become the number 1 team in the country. I really firmly and truly believe that. That's how big this game is. Washington, Michael Penix, you said it. He's played unbelievable this season. I think he's going to be in the Heisman race. I would say he's probably second behind Caleb Williams right now. Bo Nix for Oregon, he's also in the Heisman race. I would say 4 of the top 5 Heisman candidates right now are from the Pac-12, soon to be members of the Big Ten.
Isn't that crazy? The last year of the Pac-12, which I'm sorry to interrupt real quick, but I wanted to make this point. The Pac-12 has been terrible for like the last decade. It's why they're all moving. And now the last year, they're almost every good team in the Pac-12 is every good team in college football.
I know. I, that's why, like, I was so excited when Oregon and Washington announced they were coming to the Big Ten, because you're going to get You're going to get this rivalry, Oregon and Washington, but you're going to get Oregon against Ohio State, Oregon against Michigan, Oregon against Wisconsin, Oregon against Penn State. You're going to get Washington against those same teams. Now, I know you're going to get like games like Washington against Purdue or Washington against Indiana. Meh. But think about it. You're going to get, again, Oregon against Ohio State, Washington against Ohio State. I can't wait for Oregon, Washington, and USC to all join the Big Ten. No disrespect towards UCLA, but just those three teams, yes, please, thank you. But yeah, I can't wait for this game on Saturday. I am going to find my favorite spot on the couch at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to turn on this game. I'm going to pop a thing of popcorn, and I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the show. College Game Day is going to be there on Saturday in Seattle for this game. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
So, what is your score prediction?
Oh, I like Washington's defense and how they can match up with Oregon. But I still think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to go 37-34 Washington.
Okay, 37-34, which is funny you say that because that would put 71 points on the board. The over-under is listed at 67.5, so you like the over right now. Washington is favored by 2.5, so you would think that they would cover barely.
Yes. Like I said, we talked about it. Michael Penix, he's playing fantastic. Bo Nix, he's playing amazing. But I would still give the slight edge to Michael Penix in terms of like the Heisman race and all that.
That kid's phenomenal. And this is where we talk about college football and the NFL sort of blending. You know, for somebody like myself that doesn't watch a lot of college football until the big games show up, like in Oregon, Washington, like at USC, Colorado, like in Ohio State, Penn State, that's out next week. We are seeing now teams in the NFL. We know how good last year's draft in the NFL was not great. This year's draft has quarterbacks galore, as well as a phenomenal wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, the son of the great Marvin Harrison. He's going to go in the top 5. There's so much talent now that, as we talked about a few weeks ago, it sucks that the college football regular season is going to be diminished a little bit. But the expansion of the 12 team in the playoffs is going to make college football more viable in December than it ever has.
That is true. Even though we're going to the 12-team playoff, I think it's still going to have major importance on these non-conference games when you get an Ohio State versus Georgia in week 1 or week 2. I get that, like, the loser will still have a great chance to get in, but think about it. Like, you still want to have, like, a tiebreaker. Like, what if they're deciding between Ohio State and Georgia for who gets the number 1 seed? Or, like, you know, we're talking about like the 6 or 7 seed, for example, and it's Oklahoma and Penn State. Like,
right.
Who has the better quality win? You know, so I hear what you're saying about the diminishment of the regular season, but at the same time, it still holds importance.
So, last question on this topic. I want to go back to, you mentioned you think the winner of this game should be the number 1 overall team ranked ahead of Georgia. And I understand completely where you're coming from. Obviously, prior to this week, I think we were both saying Texas was probably the best team, that they laid an egg to Oklahoma on Saturday in the Red River game. My question to you is, and I know they haven't played anybody yet, but they have blown the doors off people. I think Michigan is still really, really, really good. Again, I realize they have not played great competition yet, but there's a difference between the Ohio State that's, hanging around there with Maryland for, 2.5 quarters, and Michigan, who is blowing the freaking doors off people every single week. Another 52-10 victory this past weekend. I think Michigan right now is probably the best team. The winner of this game is probably in there with Georgia, maybe Ohio State, Penn State, USC. This is going to be, and I've always wanted to be a part of the committee because I don't think the committee understands why good college football matchups are the best teams. This is going to be the hardest decision to me the committee's ever going to make. I think the top 2-3 teams are going to be clear to get that fourth seed. That's why a game like this year is so pivotal.
I don't agree with you that the top 2 or 3 teams are going to be clear. Like, okay, Michigan, I'll give you that. But what if the winner of this game goes on to stay undefeated and wins the Pac-12?
Well, if they stay undefeated, they would have to knock off USC, which essentially would take USC out of it. I think the loser of Michigan, Ohio State is going to be out. The winner's going to be in. And then I think you got a decision between Georgia. And as I told you last week, I'm sorry, if Bama stays undefeated and they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, even with one loss, Bama's got to be in that conversation.
Okay, fair. And speaking of Ohio State, Penn State, which we will get much more into that matchup next week, because I'm going to be very invested into that game because I am a Penn State fan. The reason I'm a Penn State fan, I'll just touch on this super quick, is because I love how they were able to overcome everything that happened with the Jerry Sandusky scandal and all that.
Wow.
I'm not, obviously, I am not condoning what Jerry Sandusky did. I'm just saying how Penn State was able to rise above that and become one of the I will say they're one of the powerhouses in college football.
Well, except they have a conservative coach in James Franklin who cost me twice against Ohio State when I was rooting for your team way back in the Urban Meyer days.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
Which I'm annoyed that the game between Penn State and Ohio State next week is at noon.
Oh, I love it. I love it personally.
I hate it.
I do not like the late night games, especially the night before the NFL football Sunday. Give us a chance to go to bed, rest up, wake in the morning, watch a great game, and have nothing to do the rest of the day. Have your day free. It's amazing. I can't wait.
I hate it. This game should be in prime time, not noon. But because it's going to be a top 10 showdown. You know that.
Absolutely. Well, this game's at 3:30. This game isn't essentially in prime time. Washington, Oregon.
Okay, but that's because it's in. If they wanted to do it at 5:30 Pacific time, they could have and put it at 8:30 Eastern. But I think the reason they're not doing that is because they don't want to compete with Major League Baseball playoffs, which are going on right now.
Yep. Makes sense. I agree with you on that. We got to move on, Josh. We're going back to the NFL. Best games, NFL Week 6. Here we go. I'm kicking off this segment because, in my opinion, there are only 5 really good games on the slate. I'm just going to go quickly, and I'll let you respond. To me, Colts Jaguars, very good game. Indianapolis played them very tough in week 1. How does Gardner Minshew play now that he knows he's going to be the starter for the next month? Can Jacksonville bounce back after their big win in London against Buffalo? Can they get the momentum riding? Talked about this a little bit earlier. Seattle, Cincinnati. Seattle coming off a bye. Can Cincinnati and Joe Burrow keep their momentum going after their win against Arizona? Niners, Browns. Unlike most people, if Deshaun Watson plays in this game for the Browns, just right now is a big if. I actually think the Browns can give San Francisco a game. I think they match up really well on the defensive line. I think they match up really well in the secondary. If the Browns are able to run the football against San Francisco, get some play action, I think this is a very interesting game.
I have some
The
thoughts about that game, but we can discuss that afterwards.
the next game, Lions Tampa, a game I would have never thought to put on this list at the start of the season, but Tampa's playing well. Baker Mayfield coming off a bye. Lions are hot. Can they keep their momentum going? And then obviously we talked about it. Dallas Chargers, probably the biggest game of the week this week, maybe outside of Niners Browns. Can Dallas bounce back against their former OC Kellen Moore off a bye, who's looking for revenge against his former team? Those are my best games in week 6.
All right, I'm going 1 to 5. Number 1, as much as I would love to put 49ers Browns there, because I am a Browns fan, I can't do it. I got to go with Lions Buccaneers.
As the number 1 game, oh my God, how? There are better games on the slate.
Lions
Niners Browns, a better game.
The reason I'm putting Lions Buccaneers as number 1 is because I think it has the most interesting, in my opinion. I get that Kellen Moore facing his old team is an interesting storyline. How Dallas responds, I get it. But we expected Detroit to be this good. We expected them to be first place in the NFC North. Did we expect Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield to be playing like this at this point?
No, but how long will that last?
So for me, because you have that storyline of Detroit was expected to be here, Tampa Bay was not. I like that. I think it adds to the intrigue of it. This could be like a possible playoff preview in a wild card round, maybe, if Tampa does not win the division. They could still sneak in as a wild card and face Detroit. So I like that aspect of the game. Number 2, this is where I have to agree with you. I almost said Saints Browns. No, 49ers Browns. So I want to take a little break from best games and just talk about specifically 49ers Browns. Because here's the thing. I know that the hype was more about on Dallas's side when it came to last week's game between the Cowboys and the 49ers. But, I'm sure the 49ers still got caught up in all of it, at least a little bit. So I'm wondering if the 49ers are going to be a little bit mentally tired, or however you want to say it, from, all the hype and all the hoopla and whatever other word you want to use surrounding that game. And now they have to go play a 10 a.m. Pacific time start in Cleveland. And here's the other aspect, is that because they had to play on Sunday Night Football and they have to travel to Cleveland, that's a little less practice time for the 49ers. So I think that's going to tie into it.
I disagree with you on that point because it's a Sunday to Sunday. If it was a Monday, I agree, but it's Sunday night. They're going to get back. They'll go through their normal routine, I imagine, on Monday. I don't think they lost any time.
Okay. So, but in my opinion, that's where the Browns have 2 slight, very, very slight advantages over the 49ers. I'm not saying those 2 advantages are going to be enough for the Browns to beat the 49ers, but the fact that they had to play on Sunday Night Football, get caught up in all the shenanigans, hoopla, hype, whatever word you want to use, surrounding this Cowboys game, and now they have to travel to Cleveland for a 10 a.m. start their time. I think that gives the Browns 2 slight advantages. But we'll see if that actually translates into a win for them. Number 3, I am going with the New Orleans Saints coming off of their win against the New England Patriots. They're headed down to Houston to take on CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. How do the Texans respond after a last-second loss against the Atlanta Falcons? You've got a very good Saints team coming into your building. CJ Stroud, everyone's talking about you like, okay, the Texans got it right. Back it up. Show that you can have that resiliency. Show that you have the ability to bounce back and beat a very good Saints team. So that's my number 3. Number 4, obviously, I'm going to agree with you on this one. It's Seahawks Bengals for me. The Seahawks, we've talked about it. I feel very strongly about how good the Seahawks can be. You know, I would still put them ahead of Dallas right now, but we talked about that. And then the Bengals, they seem to have found their groove. And they have their bye week next week. So that's another opportunity for Joe Burrow to get healthy. You know, this is going to be another one where it's an early start for Seattle, 10 a.m. How do they adjust to that? So I think that's a very intriguing game. And then for me, I got to agree with you again. It's Cowboys Chargers. Obviously, you have the Kellen Moore versus his old team factor. But for me, it's how do the Chargers adjust now that they don't have Mike Williams? That was a big piece that he lost on offense. They still have Keenan Allen. They still have Austin Eckler. They still have Quentin Johnson. I get it. But Mike Williams was a big part of their offense. So how do the Chargers respond following that loss?
So the only real game we disagree on, then, you have Saints Texans. I have Colts Jags. I think Colts and Jags are going to be a fascinating, highly entertaining, high-scoring game. I think Gardner Minshew plays well. I just don't want to see a 13-10 Saints-Texans game because that's what it feels like to me.
Okay, I hear you on that, but the thing with Colts Jags is the Colts seem to struggle when they go down to Jacksonville.
They do.
And the problem is Anthony Richardson is probably out for a month, which I feel like the Colts got it right by drafting him, but I'm concerned that he's gotten injured, 3 or 4 times?
At least 3 or 4 times. I mean, the kid is so raw. The kid is so talented, but he is clearly already injury prone.
And I'm not saying that the Colts need to sit him for the rest of the season or whatever, but I think there needs to be a little bit of concern there that he's gotten injured this many times already. Do you agree there?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
All right, we got to move on. Last NFL topic for today. Who is the NFL MVP through week 5? I have a feeling I know where Josh is going to go with this one. I could be wrong. You probably know where I'm going. Let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay, before I tell you who it is, who's your guess for my pick?
I'm going to guess. I think it's a Niner. I'm not going to say it's Christian McCaffrey. I think you're going to go with Brock Purdy.
You should have guessed Christian McCaffrey.
You're going to pick a running back as MVP. Oh, my God. Okay. I want to hear this.
You should have guessed Christian McCaffrey because, yes, it is Christian McCaffrey. Look at what he's done for this 49ers offense. I mean, yes, Brock Purdy had a great game last week, but Christian McCaffrey has been the workhorse for this offense. I get it. They have Brandon Ayuk. They have Elijah Mitchell when he's healthy. They have Debo. They have George Kittle. But the guy
do they still have Elijah Mitchell? I didn't think he was in San Francisco anymore.
I think so.
I thought he was in Miami.
I don't think so. But, well, I could have gone with Tyreek for speaking of the Dolphins.
You know what? You are right. I was wrong. I apologize for that. Elijah Mitchell is a Niner. Go ahead.
I could have gone with Tyreek Hill as MVP for the Dolphins. But you look at what Christian McCaffrey has done. I know a running back has not won MVP since Adrian Peterson did it back in 2012. I get it. This is a quarterback award, which, as you know, pisses me off. I hate it. But, they're going to continue to say the quarterback is the most important position on the field. Oh, yeah. I get it. I hear the argument on that one. But if you take Christian McCaffrey out of this Niners offense, their play action game is not as effective. I don't think Brock Purdy looks as good as he does. I know that Kyle Shanahan has like some wizardly touch, which that's another aspect of the Niners-Browns game is Kyle Shanahan is facing the Browns.
Yes, he is. Former offensive coordinator in 2014 under Mike Penn, who famously did not want to play Johnny Manziel.
Yes, which, speaking of that, the Browns beat the 49ers the last time San Francisco came to Cleveland in 2015. So you've got that aspect of this game. Not as much of a factor, but still an aspect of it. But Christian McCaffrey has been, I would say, the main piece of this 49ers offense. And sure, he didn't have a great game last week, but he didn't need to because the 49ers defense just said, yeah, Dallas, you're not on our level. But you look at what Christian McCaffrey has done overall, I don't think the 49ers would be undefeated right now if he was not there.
Well, my argument is this team would not be undefeated if this guy did not play the quarterback position. You know where I'm going? The guy that should have won the MVP last year, it was proven when Gardner Minshew could not move the ball against the Saints in Week 17 when Jalen Hurts sat out. Jalen Hurts, and you know what? Jalen Hurts is so good. They're trying to ban a quarterback sneak because they think the Eagles are cheating, even though Jalen Hurts squat 600 pounds and we have the best offensive line in football. They're so mad at the Eagles. They're trying to do everything they can to try to stop an unstoppable play because you cannot stop one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League, Jalen Hurts, who had some key gigantic runs. He's breaking off tackles, made some incredible plays with his legs last week against the Rams. Philadelphia would not be undefeated without Jalen Hurts. He does play the most valuable position in all of sports. There's an argument to be made that eventually a guy like Tyreek Hill or somebody like that will win MVP one day. But I'm telling you right now, I'm here to stamp my foot down. As long as the running back position continues to trend the way that it has, Adrian Peterson was the last running back to ever win NFL MVP. A running back will never win MVP again because of the way good teams and other teams use the running back position, rotating them, using 3 or 4 backs. Christian McCaffrey is great, but I'm sorry, he's not as valuable to San Francisco to me as a guy like Kittle or Ayuk or Debo or even the way Brock Purdy is playing. So that's just my take. You know my take on the running back position. Jalen Hurts, to me, is the best quarterback on the best team. They will prove it again this year when they play San Francisco Week 13. San Francisco is now ready to play the best offensive line in football. We'll find out in about 2 months' time. But Jalen Hurts, to me right now, should be the front runner for MVP with, dare I say it, as much as I don't like him, Brock Purdy, number 2.
Okay. What about Tyreek Hill? Where would you put him in the MVP discussion?
If the Dolphins were undefeated, I'd put him second.
Okay.
I think the fact they lost to Buffalo, they did not look very good. He really only had a great week 1 and a great game last week against the Giants. He has not been, I would say, out of this world Calvin Johnson-like numbers over the last few games prior to the Giants game. So I don't even know. He's probably in the top 5 right now. He's probably at 4 or 5 for me.
Okay, fair. What about Patrick Mahomes?
See, Mahomes to me is third. Mahomes is third. And by the way, if Kelsey plays, I think they're undefeated. He's probably over Brock Purdy. He has not played that great this season, but the games he has played, he's been spectacular. And he made some incredible throws Sunday against Minnesota as well.
Okay, fair. But the Chiefs have gotten some ref help in the last couple weeks.
Against the Jets, yes. Against Minnesota, no, they did not.
That was pass interference.
That was not pass interference. That was a perfect play by the defensive back. It's just people don't understand. the defensive back is allowed to make contact and drive somebody to the sideline as long as they are looking back at the ball. The NFL has basically come out and said, you are not allowed to tackle somebody nowadays. But besides that, they're not calling as many defensive PIs. They're actually calling more offensive PIs. And by the way, to be frank, the Kansas City player should have been called for taking his helmet off obviously on the field, but it wouldn't have mattered because it would have been 15 yards and still Kansas City's ball.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one, my friend.
Well, your National League World Series pick did not work out.
No.
They have been eliminated, the Milwaukee Brewers. My pick in the American League, the Houston Astros, are now currently up 2-1 on the Minnesota Twins. My biggest takeaway from the MLB playoffs so far is I understand that in Major League Baseball, home field advantage is not as prevalent as it is in other sports. But Josh, as a home team won 2 games this whole postseason. Atlanta last night, that incredible comeback against Philly. Baltimore has not won a home game yet.
Orioles
I said Atlanta last night.
Orioles could get eliminated tonight.
Yeah, they could. And Houston won game 1 against Minnesota. I think we're going to get Houston, Texas, and the ALCS. National League, I think the Phillies look better than the Braves right now.
Is it possible because I don't think Minnesota is out of the series. I still think Minnesota has a chance to upset the Astros. I do. Is it possible? I know this is a long shot, but what if we get a Minnesota-Arizona World Series?
That would be disaster. That would be a disaster for MLB. That'd be a disaster for everybody involved. Arizona, to me, is one of the worst franchises in baseball, and nobody wants to watch the Minnesota Twins in the World Series because Minnesota is not that great. Listen, I'm a big believer in big brands. No matter if I like them or not, big brands sell. You want to watch them. They want to create good ratings. As much as you don't like the Houston Astros, Josh, guess what? You're going to watch the Houston Astros. Why? Because you want them to lose. It's the New England Patriots. In fact, it's why everybody hated New England for 20 years, because everybody wanted to see the vaunted Bill Belichick and Tom Brady go down. It's why everybody was so happy for me when my Eagles took them down in Super Bowl 52, because nobody liked New England. Same case it is here with Houston. I actually think it's very likely we get a World Series rematch, which we have not seen in a long time in baseball. Phillies, Astros, I think would be fantastic.
Check this out. The Astros, after beating the Phillies in the World Series last year, their only legit World Series, because I do not count 2017. I will never count 2017, but I let my feelings be known about that last week. The Astros are 1-2 against the National League East in the World Series. They beat the Phillies last year, but they lost to the Braves in 2021, and they lost to the Nationals in 2019. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the NL East is definitely the toughest division in baseball. Philadelphia has been through it. They play really well. They gave up the lead last night, but it's basically a miracle for Atlanta to come back and win that game. Baseball is strange. We all know how good Atlanta can be. I think that Phillies Braves series fantastic. I give Philadelphia a little bit of a slight edge right now just because they did get that split in Atlanta. Going back to Philly, I think Texas takes care of Baltimore. Houston will take care of Minnesota in either game 4 or game 5. I don't know. I think it's pretty wide open, but I also think there's a good possibility we get a Houston against Philadelphia World Series, even though I did pick Houston against Atlanta last week.
Yes. It would be cool, I will say this, if it's Texas, Houston in the American League's Championship Series, especially if Max Scherzer comes back, because then you could get Max Scherzer versus Justin Verlander.
Teammates not only in Detroit, but then with the Mets, and they fire so to the deadline. Unbelievable.
Exactly.
All right. Well, before we get to Josh's Stanley Cup prediction, we got to quickly address the premium live event that took place this Saturday, which I thoroughly enjoyed myself. WWE Fastlane. I thought every match on this card was very good to great. I loved all the booking decisions. I think WWE, for the first time in a long time, you're seeing it, especially what we saw last night on Raw with all the story building. WWE is not rushing decisions. They're not booking just for a quick cheap pop. They are booking for long-term storytelling, and I think it was a spectacular show. Yeah.
LA, a lot of people are going to say the Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura last man standing match was the match of the night. But for me, it was that tag team match that you kind of referenced at the end when you went, yeah, I loved that LA Knight John Cena versus the Bloodline story or tag team match. You can tie it into a story because we're probably building to LA Knight versus Roman Reigns, probably at Crown Jewel. But
No, they're not going to do it at Crown Jewel. You are going to go very slowly with LA Knight. I personally, if I am booking, I am holding LA Knight off till WrestleMania 41. I am taking LA Knight very slowly. I am not wasting his opportunity with Roman Reigns on a Crown Jewel pay per view in Saudi Arabia. You can do it with John Cena, you can do it with AJ Styles. LA Knight is the most popular babyface right now in the company. You can say Jey Uso, you can say Cody Rhodes all you want. I think it's LA Knight.
okay, fair.
You need to build him up. Maybe give him a United States Championship match because, as Triple H even said in the post press conference, LA Knight sometimes gets in his own head, and as Triple H said, this isn't going to be a strap to the rocket and boom, he immediately wins the championship, which they didn't even do with Stone Cold Steve Austin. By the way, it took him, 6 months to a year to build him up to get to that WWE Championship match with Shawn Michaels. They are going to take their time with LA Knight, and the luxury they have is, has WWE ever had as popular baby faces as they've had right now? No. Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, LA Knight. Those are 6. I'm not just talking about over guys. I'm talking super over guys right now. I don't know if they've ever had this popular baby face. I sense a heel
turn is coming from 2 of them, though. I think Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens might both be going heel.
I don't think so. I think the audience, you get tell by the reaction, they love Sami and Kevin so much. And with Kevin accepting Jey Uso like he did last night on Raw, I called it, and I've seen some people call it the I lost to Roman Reigns club, which I think is hysterical. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, of course, Cody Rhodes is. They are building. I don't know what direction they're going to go. They have 2 options for WrestleMania. It all depends on this writer strike or the actor strike that's happening right now. Because if The Rock's available, I'm sorry, Cody, take a back seat. You have to do The Rock while he's there and available. But if Rock's not available, you go with Cody. And I'm sorry to all the Cody Rhodes fans out there, but Cody could absolutely lose again.
You want to keep the championship on Roman Reigns for a 4th consecutive year?
Listen, I know a buddy of mine has a tattoo. You know what that tattoo says? May 4th, 2028. You know what that day is? That is the day the tribal chief, our head of the table, the man that I think at my dinner table every single night for giving us bread, food, and water and providing us, the head of the table chief, Roman Reigns. That is the day he will break for being the longest reigning undisputed WWE Universal Champion.
Anyway, you brought up Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. Who would have thought of this a month ago that those 2 would be your undisputed tag team champions? Now,
not me.
Now, here's the thing. Next week, we are doing the Judgment Day versus Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso in a rematch for the Tag Team Championships. I don't want Triple H to pull the Dominic Mysterio move. What I mean by that is Trick Williams beat Dom for the North American Championship at NXT No Mercy. 3 days later, on a regular episode of NXT, Dom gets a rematch for the North American Championship and wins it back. And I'm like, so what the hell was the point of giving the championship to Trick Williams in the first place? I don't want Triple H and WWE to pull that same move with Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. As much as I don't like Cody Rhodes, I think it's interesting that he's a tag team champion with Jey Uso. You can build some type of storyline there. You know, I don't know
I
exactly.
agree with you. And by the way, there's a reason. I know some people were pissed that Damian Priest did not cash in the Money in the Bank on Seth Rollins. I completely understand why.
I
There is a
don't.
there because have you been watching the show? There is a storyline brewing, and it's not about Damian Priest winning the World Championship. The storyline is about him and that briefcase threatening the Judgment Day because the Judgment Day deep down does not want Damian Priest to be the World Champion. When Damian Priest cashes in that briefcase, the Judgment Day is breaking up, and JD McDonough will replace Damian Priest in the Judgment Day.
I
That is
do
the
think that I do agree with you on that. Um, I I do like that story, but here's the thing with um, I want to go to another match actually. I don't mind that they had Carlito come back. It was way too obvious, but if you really want to establish Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits as a heel faction, they should have gotten the win.
my takeaway is Carlito can come back, Carlito can win the match, and then they can do a beatdown on SmackDown, and you can still get Lashley even more angry that they weren't prepared for the unexpected. There are layers to storytelling here. Like that's I understand the whole booking of this show. It all made sense because you're not booking for just 1 week. They are booking long term storylines here. It's what they're doing with the Lashley and the Street Profits. It's what they're doing with the Money in the Bank briefcase. It's what they're doing with LA Knight. Yeah.
Here,
It's the whole show, even the women's championship match. Io Sky and Bailey. Io didn't want Bailey to come down. Bailey helped her. You know the breakup with Damage Control is coming as we get to WrestleMania 40, but it's playing in the minds because it's a slow build.
which I appreciate WWE doing the slow build. I really do. Like, it's different to AEW. That's why I like both brands. I hate when I hear people say you can only be an AEW fan or you can only be a WWE fan. No, you can like both. And that's what I do. I like both shows.
You
There's
you can like both, though some people on this panel don't like both, but you can like both. I'm not saying that.
I I know you don't like AEW. You're a WWE fan. I get it. I I hear you on that. I do. I understand your reasoning. Um, but I want to go back to Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. You know who I would add to that group? I would go down to NXT and I would grab the former NXT champion Carmelo Hayes and
Interesting.
I would grab his partner Trick Williams.
Interesting.
I would love to see that faction together. Bobby Lashley, Street Profits, Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes. I would absolutely love that faction. I think they would be so dominant. Not in the same fashion as the Bloodline, not in the same fashion as Judgment Day. It would be a little bit different because I don't think there would be as many like talking segments and stuff. I think it would be more just them coming out, wrecking some fools, and then leaving. But I think you could build so many good storylines if they were all together as a group. I would love to see Carmelo Hayes up on the main roster. When he had his match against Finn Balor on Monday Night Raw. I think he had a great showing. Obviously, they're building up NXT tonight. You've got Cody Rhodes making a huge announcement. You've got John Cena backing Carmelo. You've got Paul Heyman in the corner, Braun Breaker. But I love Carmelo Hayes. I understand why they took the title off of him at NXT No Mercy, but I think it would have been an even better storyline if Trick Williams had hung on to the NXT North American Championship, and then you have Carmelo Hayes with the NXT Championship. Give them both championships. I think that would have created a fascinating storyline.
So, for those of you that don't know, the NHL regular season starts tonight. And I don't know anything about hockey outside of Quad Giroux used to play for the Philadelphia Flyers. So, with that being said, to end today's show, my man Josh Ungar, who is a big hockey fan, the one compliment I will give to Josh Ungar is Josh Ungar knows literally everything about every single sport, and I have no idea how he can talk about the WNBA, the NBA, the MLB, UFC, WWE, NFL, NBA. He could probably talk about golf or tennis if he wanted to.
No, I couldn't.
The man pretty much lives on all things sports. So, Josh, give the people what they want, the fans of championship rings. Your Stanley Cup prediction.
As much as I would love to say the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to win the Stanley Cup, because I am a huge Pittsburgh Penguins fan, they are opening the season tonight against number 1 pick Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks, which that should be a great game. Sidney Crosby, Connor Bedard, I love it. But I'm going to go with the Carolina Hurricanes. Teuvo Teravainen, Sebastian Aho, Rod Brindamore as head coach. I think Carolina finally gets over their conference final yips, and they hoist Lord Stanley's Cup for the first time since 2006. Who will they play? The 2021 Stanley Cup champions. Or no, the 2022 Stanley Cup champions. I'm sorry. It's going to be Carolina against Colorado. And the Carolina Hurricanes will take home the Stanley Cup in 6 games. And your Conn Smythe Trophy winner will be Sebastian Aho. So I'm going with the Carolina Hurricanes over the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games. And the Conn Smythe Award winner will be Sebastian Aho.
For all you NHL fans out there, that was for you. Josh, what a freaking show we had today, man. We originally supposed to go here for an hour. We're almost at an hour 15. Had to do a little bit of a run over today because of how in tune with the debate we were. What an awesome show. We'll be back here with you next week, as always. Make sure to check up on our social medias. I know we've asked potentially some scheduling conflicts come up. We'll be announcing those potentially as not to spoil anything, but this man here, Josh Ungar, may be getting another awesome position that I am looking forward to him getting. I'm not going to say what it is or anything, but that's why we may have to change the show around potential times down the line. We're not really sure yet, but we'll keep you updated on that on social media. Anything to add, Josh, before we get out of here tonight?
No.
And with that, this has been Championship Rings. This has been October 10th edition, 2023. If you're a fan of WWE and AEW, enjoy the wrestling war tonight between Tony Khan's promotion and the promotion led by Shawn Michaels down there in NXT. Have a good week. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy all the NFL, college football, MLB playoff action, along with the NHL start of the regular season. We'll see you then. And peace.
A salute to you.